Next, Straw Hat. Rora Nora Zoro, the number 2 of Straw Hat Luffy, the man who's fought multiple Yonko alongside his captain, as well as a plethora of other feats surrounding the Straw Hat Pirates. What will his bounties be in the future, after Wano, and even beyond? Today we discuss Zoro's bounties, past, present, and future, so now let's just get into it. So Zoro's first bounty was 60 million, which is twice Luffy's original bounty, and he gained this after Alabasta, after defeating Mr. One or Daz Bones. And we don't really have a specific reason as to why he got this bounty, but we can make a few inferences, and I guess like the main reason would just be that he is the number 2 of the Straw Hat Pirates, which would just make sense as to why he got a bounty. I can't really think of anything he did specifically in the saga leading up to this, except for his specific fight with Daz Bones that would give him that bounty. The thing about Alabasta is that it's really hard to determine why Luffy and Zoro got their bounties, because pretty much all we learned about that is that Zoro and Luffy were not able to take credit for the bounties they got, and instead Smoker basically took credit for taking down Crocodile, which he got promoted to captain for. Same rank as Colonel Nesmi. I still don't know why that happened, but that means Zoro was worth 2 East Blue Luffy's, aka he can take down 3 Arlongs and 4 Buggies. Amazing. So after the Water 7 and Enies Lobby saga, Zoro earns a bounty of 120 million berries, which is of course worth 8 buggies, a whole 8 buggies. Zoro's really getting up there in power level, of course, and that's the only way to power scale One Piece is through the use of buggies. But there is another way, which is basically what we got in Enies Lobby, where we saw the members of CP9 and their power levels. So basically Kaku's power level was 2,200. The weird thing about Kaku is that we don't know if he got these power levels before or after he got his Devil Fruit. I'm pretty sure it's after he got his Devil Fruit, so that means that Kaku was probably stronger, but that's only a way to power scale. In terms of Zoro's actual bounty, I would say it's determined by, first of all, him being the number 2, defeating Kaku, who is of course a member of CP9. Third of all, cutting down other Marines and other people throughout Enies Lobby, and then fourth of all, the iceberg assassination attempt. Like, don't forget all the stuff that the Straw Hats were blamed for when determining the bounties, because that could be a big factor as to why they got them. But either way, at the end of the arc, Zoro gets 120 million and Sanji gets 77 million, which is a difference of 43 million berries, even though Sanji's is higher than Zoro's second bounty even. But that means that Sanji's worth over 5 buggies. Oh my god, very impressive, Sanji, very impressive. But now, moving on to Zoro's next bounty of 320 million, which he, of course, gained after the events of Dressrosa. So, this is not just after the events of Dressrosa, but of course, after a multitude of arcs where Zoro did a lot of stuff but never got credit for it. Nothing happened. Zoro gets kicked around by Kizaru, which is not really a feat, but it did happen. Him coming back from the time skip, beating up a pacifista, and then we have Fishman Island. He did a little bit of stuff. Bunk Hazard, Monet, Dressrosa, then he cuts down Pika. Zoro didn't really get to do much in this arc because there were a million other characters that have to do something in this arc, because we had to flesh out the entire Grand Fleet, because that's a setup that hasn't really gone anywhere yet, but yeah. Zoro gets 320 million after taking down Pika. That's pretty much the only reason why he would get this bounty that I could think of. So now moving on to Wano. So Zoro's definitely shined throughout Wano. It started out with him cutting down a man with a knife the size of my thumb, mirroring the Mihawk scene, and then of course he has to fight with Hitokiri Kamazo, or Killer. Next we have his fight during Apu, which is going to happen in the anime soon, and it has a very epic finisher. Then there's Roof Piece. I don't really think I need to explain that, but of course the thing that's probably going to get him his bounty, which is of course his fight with King. But really the determining factor with Zoro versus King is what King's bounty will be. We pretty much know that Zoro will fight King and defeat him, but the real question is what King's bounty is, because we know that Queen's bounty is 1.32 billion, and I feel like King and Queen's bounties are going to be very similar in number because it seems like they're generally doing the same stuff and they all have like that title of Calamity, but that's where we had to decide where that number is. Is it more around 1.4 or more around 1.5? I'm leaning towards 1.5 because he is second in command of a Yonko. So let's say that King's bounty is 1.5 billion berries, which is the same like as Luffy's. So then Zoro would presumably have to get a bounty that's higher than that. And since Zoro tends to have Luffy's former bounties, but just with a 20 added on, which Luffy had 100 million even, and then Zoro has 120 million. Luffy has 300 million even, and then Zoro has 320 million. So then Luffy has 1.5 billion, so then Zoro has 1.52 billion. So that just makes sense to me. Queen's might be a little lower than Luffy's actually, because Luffy was considered a fifth emperor, of course, and I feel like the only second in command that's going to have a bounty that's going to be higher than what Luffy had at this point is going to be Ben Beckman. And I feel like that's going to be a good way to segue into Elbaf, which is probably going to be the next arc, unless it's like some sort of Marijois thing where we go back and see what's happening at Marijois because of Sabo and Luffy doesn't want to lose another brother, you know? So that would be a good way for Zoro to maybe fight an admiral like Fujitora, but the story could go either way and we don't really know. We'll have to see once Act 3 wraps up, but from a story writing standpoint, I think it would make a lot more sense to have Elbaf be a shorter arc where we focus on the individual fights, but none of the Straw Hats will actually get specific bounty increases, besides maybe Luffy if the Big Mom Pirates end up coming there. And then, of course, Zoro could have his own bouts with whichever one of the Big Mom Pirates. But basically from there, we could have Elbaf be a short arc, test Zoro's strength against the number 2 of Shanks' crew, which is, of course, going to be Ben Beckman, while Luffy fights the number 1 Shanks. Sanji fights the number 3 Lucky Roo, and then Usopp fights the number 4 technically, or just Yasop because he's his dad, you know, we've been waiting for that for forever. So that would happen, Elbaf would be short, then we get to travel back to Marijois real quick and see what's happening there, and then Zoro can maybe fight an admiral, get a bounty increase, which would be over 2.2 billion, which could probably be around where Ben Beckman's is. If not, it would be a lot higher, like closer to 3 billion, if Shanks' crew really just have like that higher bounty. I feel like there's going to be an upper echelon of Shanks' crew, which is going to be the ones that we know, like Ben Beckman, Lucky Roo, and Yasop. But it really just depends on how high Oda wants to make that higher echelon of Shanks' crew's bounties be, because of course we know that Blackbeard's is 2.247 billion, so it wouldn't make much sense for one of the second in commands of a Yonko to have a bounty that would be higher than 2.247. So you would say that maybe Ben Beckman's isn't even 2.2 billion, and then it goes like slightly further down from there. Maybe Lucky Roo and Yasa both have bounties that are like exactly around 2 billion, and then that would just make sense, but it could be higher. But thinking about Blackbeard's bounty, Blackbeard's definitely going to make some kind of move that's going to be crazy in the near future, which is definitely going to give him a bounty increase that's going to be kind of similar to Luffy's. I think Luffy's going to get something that's about like 3.5 billion, and then right after that we're going to see Blackbeard do something crazy, and that's when he's going to get a bounty that's going to be like over 4 billion or around 4 billion, like in the Shanks range. So it would just make sense for that to happen within the story. So then let's say that Zoro fights Fujitora. What do you think its bounty would be after that? Well, I think it would make sense for it to be like over 3 billion. If Ben Beckman's is over 2.2 billion, then it would make sense for Zoro to get a bounty that would be like above that. So then if he defeats an admiral, who of course has a lot of notoriety within the world of One Piece, he could get a bounty that's like 3 billion and then 200 million, so then it would be 3.2. So it would be his bounty of 320 million berries, just with an extra zero on the end. Now, of what we know of, we pretty much have Blackbeard and Mihawk. So Mihawk will probably be a post-story thing. I don't feel like it's going to be like in the proper canon of the story, but we might see it afterwards, because I feel like Luffy's dream is going to be the one that happens first, and everything else will happen like around the same time, if not after. So for Zoro, we need to talk about him in relation to Mihawk, so I feel like it would be a good time to talk about Mihawk's bounty. Mihawk has not had a single bounty that we know of in the entire story. We kind of have no idea, but Mihawk and Shanks have been compared to each other several times throughout the story. We know that Mihawk is essentially quote-unquote Yonko level. I wouldn't even be surprised if he was stronger than Shanks, and that wasn't just what he was saying. And I feel like after the Warlord system, when we kind of cut back after Wano, or after Act 3 or whatever, or after Act 4 or after Act 5, I don't really know how it's going to go, but we're going to get updates on the Warlord's bounties, which I feel like every time we get more bounties, we get like a better way to determine like all the bounties after that, so this video could be kind of obsolete. But for Mihawk, I think it should be over 3 billion, and people have been saying that all the Warlords that exist now are going to get bounties that are over 1 billion. Well, there's Buggy, and I'm sorry, Buggy fans, but Buggy is only worth the amount of Buggies that Buggy is worth, which is 15 million. I don't know how much more he's gonna get. Maybe he gets 1.5 billion, and then they just add on a bunch of zeros right there, and like, yeah, that's Buggy. But sorry, Buggy fans. So let's say that Mihawk's bounty is more than 3 billion. I feel like it could be something cool, like 3.33 billion, so like 333, half demon, I guess. But I guess that doesn't really fit in with Mihawk that much. He doesn't have many relationships with like demons or anything. I guess he's just kind of spooky, so that could make sense, but it doesn't really make much sense. Either way, I think he's going to be in the 3 billion range. So let's say that Mihawk's bounty is 3.33 billion, so presumably Zoro's would be higher than that. Let's put Zoro's final bounty at 3 billion 600 million 10,000 and then 8, so like 3.6 108, so like 108 caliber Phoenix. Zoro tends to have like a theme that's connected to like different numbers and stuff, so let's just put that as his final bounty. But I think he'll get that after all the stuff that happens at Raft Tail, even though I think his bounty will still be higher than Mihawk's. But he will fight Shiryu, I think so, and that's when he'll get that final bounty. So yeah, let's go with that. I don't really know, but that's just my prediction so far based on what I think could happen throughout the story. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I'm just a guy. Y'all are all people too. Want to hear what you had to say, because you probably have better opinions than me. So like, comment, subscribe, all that other stuff. I'm going to try to post more often now, because I kind of stopped for a long while, but get back into it. Maybe daily One Piece content, so yeah, subscribe for that. Goodbye.